evening and welcome to the November 10th Grafton School Committee meeting pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law GLC 30A-18 and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Grafton School Committee is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of the members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that people who would like to listen to this meeting while in progress may do so by visiting the Zoom link found on the Grafton Town website. We will need to take attendance and announce all the committee members and school officials on the call, and we will have a roll call vote for all votes. So I will take an attendance now. Jennifer Conley, are you there?
Yes, Jennifer Connolly here, sorry.
No problem. Amy Marr?
Amy Marr here.
Elizabeth Spinney?
Here.
Rahul Rati?
Rahul Rati here.
James Dewar?
James Dewar here.
Annabelle Weber?
Annabelle Weber here.
And our school officials on the call, we have Dr. James Cummings,
Jay Cummings here.
Tracy Kalo,
Tracy Kalo here.
Kristen Gasper,
Kristen Gasper here.
Anita Patel,
Here.
James Pignataro,
Jim Pignataro here.
and Sharon Buckley.
Sharon Buckley here.
Great. And public comment is still currently suspended, and our Q&A is open for your questions only. And we ask our viewers at home to continue the same decorum they would use during an in-person meeting. To make sure we can get to as many questions as possible, we'll have our clerk, Amy Marr, monitor questions. We'll allow one question and one follow-up per person during our meeting. We retain the right to ask anyone to leave who's unable to act appropriately. And we always invite you to reach out to us via our school email accounts or on our GPS budget coronavirus Facebook page. I don't have a chairperson's update tonight, so we're going to go right to general business. And I'm going to turn it over to Jim Pignataro and Sharon Buckley. And they're going to present to us about class rank. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Laura, for allowing us to present the information tonight. I'll start off and then Sharon will get into some other details. We did share some information with you through Jay, some of the detailed information late last week. But we have a PowerPoint tonight that we want to share with you and just talk to you about why we think the decision to remove class rank is for the benefit of our students at Grafton High School. If you look back to class rank for many years, it was the thing to use in terms of students attending colleges, universities. That was the one thing that, where do you rank? And colleges looked at that. However, it's a really, as we put in the PowerPoint, it's an antiquated system that schools do not look at this as much as they used to. We're not on the cutting edge. I should let you know that. There are many high schools that long ago have removed this as far as reporting out to colleges and universities. So where is the focus now? The focus now is on what are the students taking for classes at their high school. We really emphasized that back to last spring when there was a lot of discussions when we were, everyone was on remote. What are colleges going to look at? And really what they're looking at is what the student is taking for classes and what's on their transcript. So is the student challenging themselves on an ongoing basis? Are they taking the most challenging courses at the high school? Whether that's AP courses, honors courses, whatever that may be, or really taking a wide variety of courses to challenge them in a lot of areas. Two particular things that the schools will look at, probably more than other years, is our school profile. The school profile talks about, the number of courses in AP that we offer, what our SAT scores are, ACT scores, what kind of school are we? And so schools will go back to that, colleges will go back to that, and really get a sense of what Grafton High School is all about. The other piece, which we've put a lot of time and effort into, which really helps us out and helps out the students, is our program of studies, where they look at the descriptions of our courses and they'll make a determination upon, when they start looking at GPA and et cetera, revising that and looking at the courses in terms of What is it about that course? What is really the meat of the course, and looking at that. So all these are things that are outside of the, the class rank, parameters that schools are looking at. The other piece that schools are looking at beyond class rank is, again, that holistic approach. And what does that mean? That is really getting into not only the grades, obviously, and the courses that the students are taking, but the other part is, what is the student doing beyond a high school? For example, volunteer work, community service, service within the school, letters of recommendation carry a lot of weight. And then also for some schools, it's the interview process. When they sit down with the admissions office, how they conduct themselves in the interview and how they answer. I can tell you that last year in particular, the interview process for some of our seniors that graduated last year, I think put them over the top in terms of getting into some of the schools, and some high-powered schools. So the colleges will look at, GPA, SAT, ACT. Those are where those admission trends are, but the idea of using class rank is simply not, used as much as it used to be years ago. So that's kind of a big picture overview. And then Sharon will get into some other details at this point.
Thanks, Jim. I think I do want to just kind of globally state that we continue to want to represent and present Grafton High School students in the best possible light. And we know that there are challenges to using rank when it comes to reporting that out to colleges. What happens is, if we do report a rank, colleges will start to then make a comparison of our students to students from possibly radically different high schools, because we start to compare apples to oranges, right? A rank presumes that everybody has the same opportunity at their high schools, and we know that that isn't true. We also know that Grafton High School offers students a pretty rigorous course load from which to choose. We want to promote students competing against themselves in a sense. So taking courses of increasing rigor along the way because it's of interest to them, and not because they want to take a course that'll boost their GPA to increase their rank. And we've seen that work either in a positive way, but more often in a negative way, because they struggle in a course for the sake of taking something that will boost a GPA. Additionally, there's challenges to reporting rank to colleges in that it could eliminate a student from consideration if their rank is actually below the threshold that's set by colleges and universities. So in particular, if they set a specific rank to earn merit scholarship, if we don't report a rank and they base it just on GPA and their transcript, they oftentimes will be considered for that merit award, as opposed to we report their rank is at 25%, but the cutoff is 10% if schools report rank. Some data I came across just tonight in preparation, in addition to the other data that we've provided. If you look at the top 20% of students in our graduating class 2021, the top 20% all have a GPA higher than 3.9654. So what that tells you is, as somebody who's ranked or is at number 38 or 40 is not that far off from the rest of the students that are in that top 20%. So I think the removal of a class rank will benefit most of our students and more of our students. That is different than the elimination of a class rank. And I want to be sure to differentiate between that. Some scholarships and some high honors type programs will ask, where would this student rank? They would see that our school is no longer a school that reports exact rank or even a decile rank, but counselors will still have the ability to report out to that high honors program, this student ranks in the top 5%. So we are not eliminating that possibility of being able to provide that data. Rather, we're not making it public to all colleges. We would make it exclusive to those who want to know that particular data set. Scholarships and merit awards are largely based on GPA, SAT, and ACT. But as I said, we can still provide those rank percentiles. I'd ask this group to keep in mind that just last week, we met with the UMass university system. And they reported that even now they are using GPA to a lesser degree in awarding admission, because they really need to drill down and look at rigor of their transcript, which means, are they challenging themselves each year, course by course, and year by year, as opposed to, we all know SAT and ACT scores are by and large test optional now. So they have to look at other parameters. And then finally, we would continue with an informal class rank so that we can still award valedictorian, salutatorian honors. But what this does is it really gets us thinking along the lines of, there are dozens of honorable stories of achievement of our students, and it shouldn't be limited, in my opinion, and those of us at Grafton High School, to those as to where they rank in class. Many students have dramatic progress that happens, and they should really choose courses based on their interest and not those that would necessarily just boost them in a ranking. We did include, I think you received this PowerPoint ahead of time. I wanted to legitimize some of the notable experts in education and how they feel about class rank and why there's a lack of emphasis on that. You'll see here the Washington Post, College Board, of course, Yale University. And just today we received in our Marshall memo an update on educational leadership article on class rank and the demise of such. So as Jim mentioned, we're a little bit behind the cusp here in considering the removal of class rank, not the elimination of, but the removal of, so that we can represent our students in the best possible light to colleges and universities and to continue to foster their psyche and motivational level through their high school career. So I think at this point, Jim, we can take any questions people might have.
Great. Thank you so much, Sharon, and thank you, Jim. I'll take any questions from the committee. Liz?
Thank you very much for this presentation and for bringing this to our attention. I have a couple of questions. First, I know you said that you believe that this will benefit most of the students at Grafton High School. Do you think, is there any segment of the population that you think might, or have you seen students that you might think might perhaps lose some of their competitiveness because of this? You know, I spoke to I have an example of one, but just spoke to one student who said, well, you know, that ranking sort of pushed me a little bit to you know, work a little harder, and because I felt that competitiveness with, and so it kind of helped that student. But to what extent do you see that? And do you think that's if you've seen it, do you think it's a small segment of the student population?
I guess I'll let Sharon talk about, kind of dig into that piece, but I'll just say in a global sense that so many times the student is fixated on the grade. You know, what did I get for a grade? Rather than, you know, what skills am I learning? What am I taking from this course? And challenging themselves in a course that they may not have received a high grade. So that piece is always there, that, you know, competitiveness between the students. You know, I need an A because I need, you know, this. And we're really trying to focus in on over the past few years, as far as, you know, really getting into, you know, the skills that we want you to understand and learn from these classes here. But Sharon, maybe you can speak to the students as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's been my experience that I agree with you, Elizabeth. For some students, that's a motivator and a drive, but it's such a small segment. And I would contend that as we shift the culture and the thinking amongst our students, that, you know, why are you choosing this course? Are you working toward a focus on a pathway or an idea of where you want to study or what you want to study? And it really is going to be incumbent upon counselors to work with those students as well, and teachers to say, what's your next challenge? You know, what is it that you want to study next? How can we help you to feel challenged and motivated each day? Because there are those students who will take and need to take the most rigorous course load because they need to feel challenged and like they're learning and contributing to their learning. So I guess to answer your question, I don't think it's going to affect that many students. It's going to take us educating them about making choices and why you're making those choices. We'll still have those top, you know, 3, 4, 5 kids who are vying for that Val and Sal position. But I wish I had thought of posting the YouTube that I saw recently, because I don't know if any of you have seen it, but it really resonates on a valedictorian who spoke at his high school who really flipped it. I mean, he just turned it around to say, here's how and why this benefited me. And it wasn't because now I'm number 1 and can go to school. It was how I can give back to people in my community and school and how that's going to help me to improve myself when I leave here. So I don't think it's going to have a negative impact. And I think, you know, if we thought that, we wouldn't be entertaining it. I work a lot with network groups of career job alikes, and to the T, no one has said that it's been a bad decision. So
Good. Thank you. My only other follow-up question, if I may, was just, and forgive me for not knowing the entire process, not having yet had a high school student move through the college application process, but I'm starting to understand it. And now I understand that it's very different than it was when I did it myself, but I understand that it's just sort of a database that you apply to all colleges and all the information is in one place. And you touched on that a little bit when you were mentioning if they needed, if a particular college or something, if they needed to know that rank and that was a blank that they couldn't skip, that information would be provided. Would it be provided to the student who would then enter that, or does that go through the guidance counselor who enters it directly so that they wouldn't know and be able to share with all the kids, oh, I just found out, you know, I'm number 10 or
a good question. If a school was looking for that kind of specific information, they wouldn't necessarily be looking for exact rank. They would be looking for decile or percentile rank. So they might say, in order to enter our honors college, your student would need to rank in the top 5% of your graduating class. Does he or she meet that criteria? And the counselor would be able to answer that question. They would also be able to share that with the student.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Jen?
When you're talking about when you're trying, let's say there's an honors program that wants to know that info, do they have to come to you, or would that be something that you'd be willing to provide on your own? Or I'm not how sure that works.
You mean, would the student have to come?
No,
to
I'm at the colleges. Like, do they have to come,
Oh.
or would you ever provide that sort of information possibly? I don't know. I'm kind of thinking more like for the 5th percentile, the 10th percentile, whatever,
Right.
looking for those scholarships.
Right. What would happen is at the time of the award, they would ask either the school or the student, we need your class rank for that scholarship award. More often than not, it's not the merit scholarship awards at colleges, it's the admissions to a particularly highly competitive honors program. So it's not as much the scholarship awards as it would be the admission. But we would provide that freely, you know, whether the college came to us. More often than not, the college would inform the student and then they would come to the counselor.
Okay. And then earlier I saw some presentation where you provided us a lot of information regarding the background, and I appreciate that because I think that helped me a lot, just learning more about what was going on. I just want to touch upon when you said an informal class ranking. What do you mean by informal? for the valedictorian.
Right, formal class ranking would be, we publicly give that to colleges when a student applies. So there's an option when we send our school profile and our documentations to colleges. It asks, does your school report class rank? We would report no. Right now we say yes, and then they ask, is it exact rank or is it a percentile rank? We use an exact rank. So that is garnered by looking at a student's final GPA at the end of their junior year. That is what's reported as their GPA for initial admissions to college. That's also what is used to determine class rank at the time of college admission. When a student applies to college, we then will send that transcript that reflects rank and GPA. At the end of Q1, we report the transcript again that has Q1 grades. College admissions officials will recalculate a student's GPA using those Q1 grades. Students are aware of that. That's why we encourage them to continue to do well, especially Q1 and through senior year. But that recalculation is done at the college level. So Grafton High School never recalculates all that until the end of their senior year when we're awarding Val and Sal.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Rahul?
Thanks, Jim and Shannon. Okay, I have three things kind of. One was you were talking about the percentile. Will that be formal or will that be only for your records?
That would be, it would be informal for our records. And then if a college is requesting it, we would report it.
So students wouldn't know, like someone wouldn't know and can't compare it with that.
No.
Okay, next is, are we planning to take a survey, send it to the kids or parents, or is it just the administration who will be deciding about it?
I don't believe we intend on taking a survey, and I'll tell you why, Raul. It's given most of the data that we've collected, I feel educating students and parents and faculty about the rationale behind why we would eliminate, or I should say remove, formal rank is, I don't want to say sufficient. I mean, I'd like to continue to offer opportunity for discussion, but I just think it puts us too much at a disadvantage, and I'm happy to take questions and I'm sure Jim as well, to entertain a conversation and discussion with students. In no way did we want this to be kind of a surprise, hey, here's what we're doing. Rather, I believe this has been something that's been investigated for a couple of years in Grafton now. You know, I've been here a little over a year and kind of got in the mode of asking more questions about it. I don't tend to sit still on something. So I asked more and more questions and then provided some more data to the admin team at the high school and then to other folks just to see what their thoughts were. And the resounding response has really been favorable. So you know, I'm certainly open to having more conversation and discussion with students. If there's some significant concerns and pushback, I'd like to be able to talk about that and alleviate any fears or perceptions that it would be hurtful. So
I could just add to that. So I think one of the things we've done, any decisions we've made, especially since the last spring, we definitely have talked to our colleagues in other schools, other districts. We've networked with, whether it's principals, guidance directors, many different people with regards to a lot of different topics. And this is one of them. We feel confident moving forward. It doesn't mean we won't have any conversations with students and or parents if they have questions about rank in a particular college or university. But we feel confident moving forward and then addressing those individual conversations as they come up.
Yeah,
I-
the third thing was,
I might ask if the students present have any thoughts or feelings about it.
Well, I mean, that's definitely been on my mind lately. I was just like checking to see if GPAs are changing, and that's all that stuff's definitely been in the back of my head for a while. So I'd say it would eliminate definitely some of the stress of comparing with like our fellow students, but I mean, I'd be concerned with what the people at the very, very top in the top few percentiles would think about that.
I agree. There's a lot of stress as a student with GPA and SAT and ACT scores, and I think class rank might build on that. But also, I agree with James as like the top percentile is so competitive that without the class rank, there might be like students might not be happy with that. But I'm not sure because with the GPAs, there's still the competitiveness. So
Thank you for that feedback, guys. I mean, I know, look, it's going to take a little shift in mindset. If we could get to a place at some point, and it might take a little while, that you're competing with yourself to know you're doing the best you can to make yourself the most, I don't even want to say marketable to colleges, because it's really about you being ready, right, for next steps after high school. And make no mistake about it, okay? Colleges are lucky to get you, no matter who you are. And colleges are a business, all right? So I think sometimes kids and families and adults and all of us can sometimes get wrapped up in, oh, I hope they take me and I hope my GPA is enough and my rank and if we can just kind of step back and step down a little bit and say, I have made myself the most ready to leave Grafton High School and be productive and ready to make myself an independent adult who can contribute to society. Like, I don't want to start sounding really philosophical, but in my mind, and that's what we do. That's what we're here to help you with. And, you know, I get it. There's the race for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but there's also, I think, and you guys kind of spoke to it, going to be a sense of relief of, okay, I don't have to worry where I am, because if I'm number 6, 7, 12, or 18 or 40, am I ready and proud of what that piece of paper at graduation says about me? That's what it's about.
Thank you. Rahul, I think you had another question still.
I didn't have, it was not a question, it was just a comment, but it was exactly what James and Annabelle said. It lessens the stress on kids. And I mean, coming from India, I know how stressful it was because of the rankings I went through, and probably Grafton students went through the same thing. But at the same time, I also want to add that we invest, like it will help us, our kids develop overall in an overall fashion, not only compete against each other for grades. So that said, we have to get our AP courses, work hard towards our AP courses and diversify our courses that we offer. Like in Shrewsbury, they offer debate classes. I'm not sure if you have it in Grafton, but just to add 2 things here.
I think Grafton is moving toward expanding opportunities for our kids. I mean, just this year, we're offering QCC early college, high school courses. There are many ways to highlight yourself and our students besides where you rank in a class of 188 people. Because that's honestly, that's a small little snapshot, right, of your life. I mean, I know you guys, it's your whole life right now, and I'm talking like an old person right now, but it's that much, right? But the skills and the things that you develop around successfully completing high school to the best of your ability is what it's what's going to propel you forward. So Grafton is progressive. I'm impressed with what Grafton is doing, and I think this was just one little, I don't want to say checkbox. It's just one other thing that if we can move forward on it, we can really do great things for all of our kids, even more great things down the road.
Jen?
More for the public that are watching. I don't know if you have it available on you, but you provided us maybe a list of schools or a list of percent of who are like where ranking stands when they're looking at for colleges. And I think this might be like a nice snapshot that for people to understand where you're coming from.
Sharon, you're on mute.
Sorry, the National Academy of College Admissions Counselors, you mean that chart?
I don't even remember anywhere. You
I
sent
think
us
you
like
did of area school districts. Somebody sent it out. Maybe it was
Oh, I
you,
did.
Jay.
Yeah,
school districts, but it was also like maybe like 46% was your GPA, something was the
No,
rigor.
Sorry, Jen.
right. I can find that now and share it here, or I could send it out. How would you prefer me to do?
I like it to be shown here, just so for the people who are at home
Okay,
can see what we saw earlier.
all right, let me find that.
Sorry.
Yeah, while you're looking, I think, Amy, you had a question. Maybe Jim can answer, or Sharon.
Yeah, my question was, is it the intent to continue to provide this information for the kids who are graduating, coming up, and then stopping with the class of 2022? That is, kids who are already applying for colleges now that are in 2021. I'm assuming that information has already been released, or are you not going to release that for this class if this passes?
The class rankings for this graduating class have already been released. We
Okay.
are proposing that the formal reporting of class rank would cease for the class of 2022.
Great. Thank you. Before you release that, I just had a couple of things to say, if that's okay.
Yep.
One, so James, you're not off the hook, I guess. So sorry on that. I really, when this was first presented to me, I think it was a case of the back in my day, which I think always kind of halts us sometimes in education, because when we were kids, as Liz kind of alluded to, things were very different. That was a big part of who we were when we were trying to get into college. And then you really kind of hit it home for me, Sharon, when you talked about like the top percent. Like, I went to a high school that had over 400 people. So the top 50% in that could be very different than the top 10% of a high school that's smaller, or 200 or 100. And I really think that we've moved forward in thinking about what is a Grafton graduate? What does the portrait of our graduate look like? And it's so much more than grades and rank. It's exactly what you said. It's community service. It's social emotional learning. It's all of those things, the soft skills, the things that we've been working on to create who a graduate is. And I think that this kind of eliminates, just as you said, that little piece that maybe somebody's not going to try that harder class because they want that easy A, or as we used to call, or whatever, when it's really more important to maybe challenge yourself and possibly get a B, but you've taken a little bit of a stretch class. So I really like the way that this is moving. I think, like exactly what you said, it's a mindset, and because it's most of us, and this is back in my day, and I always think that's a dangerous way to think, because education is constantly changing, and we need to move forward with it. And as you said, if a college still needs it, I mean, it's available. Obviously, you can rank people, but so I appreciate this, and I'm very much in favor of it.
Thank you. I did find that chart. If you'd like, I can share that now.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful, please. Thank you.
Okay, so this shows the percentages of college that attribute different levels of importance to factors in admissions decisions. This was the most recent data from the National Association of College Admissions Counselors. These were trends from 18 and 19. And you'll see here that class rank only has 9.1% considerable importance, that no importance and limited is closer to the 50%. So that gave us pause to think they're not really giving it much credence as compared to strength of curriculum, which is at 62%, grades and courses, 75%. And then the next chart shows trends since 2007, that class rank at the time back in 2007 was 23% importance, all the way down to present day, quote unquote, which is 9%. So the trend has definitely been downward. Counselor recommendations have some weight, but you're going to see that grades in courses, grades in all courses, and strength of curriculum prevails. Even more so, as we've witnessed this year, less prevalence on admission tests. So when we start to talk about Grafton High School building innovation pathways and early college high school offerings and thinking outside the box of internships, this is where we're going to lend our students the greatest advantage, because we can compete with schools or other programs that are doing the same. We're not relying on the same old. And as we start to build capacity in expanding course offerings, we start to build depth within each curricular area. And I think that's something that colleges will be looking for. If I'm looking to apply to a business school, what kind of offerings did Grafton High School provide our students? Those are the kind of things that we'll want to see. And more importantly, again, than what our colleges are going to see is, what are our students getting exposed to? If before they leave Grafton, they can have marketing, accounting, intro to entrepreneurship, AP computer psych, like if we can give them that depth and breadth, then we're going to position them well. And then finally, I did share with, or Jim and I did share with school committee this research that was conducted just last March. I polled networking groups of schools in the area that are using class rank, and you will see that most schools are not using an exact class rank. Grafton is among only 2 in this listing that are using exact rank. Most schools, in fact, have moved toward no rank, and you'll see that there is even some discrepancy between some schools that are considering an unweighted GPA versus a weighted GPA. There are so many different trends in data that we provide on behalf of our students that it would take, I mean, you can have a full-time job doing that, but you know, we know and understand what will help our students the most. So that's really what motivated this presentation, this proposal, and hopefully we've explained it in a way that makes sense.
Thank you. Any other questions from the committee? Hearing none. So if you feel ready, I can entertain a motion for removal of class rank, starting with the class of 2022.
Before I make the motion, I wanted to make the statement, and I think it was said already, but we've reviewed a lot of information prior to this discussion, and I wanted to thank Sharon and Jim publicly for providing all of that, because I do feel prepared to make a decision on it tonight, and I wouldn't have without all that information. I graduated from a college that did not calculate GPA, and that was pretty controversial, but you know what? It worked out. You know, kids that go to that school go on to great graduate programs, and the school does report GPA when requested by a graduate school. So this is something that I think will distress some of our students maybe take a little bit of the load off in guidance, maybe, perhaps. So with that, I would like to move that we discontinue formal reporting of class rank, starting with the class of 2022.
Second,
Motion made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All right, hearing none, and this will be a roll call vote. Jennifer Conley,
Jennifer Connolly, aye.
Amy Marr,
Amy Marr, aye.
Elizabeth Spinney,
Aye.
Rahul Rati,
Rahul Rati, aye.
Laura Often, aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Sharon and Jim, thank you so much. And I know we probably may get some questions, so we will direct them to you.
Yes, I appreciate everybody's time and consideration. Please send any questions to my attention. I'd be happy to have more conversations. I also wanted to take this time to publicly thank Anita, who helped me tremendously this year in getting my school's buck set up for AP exams and for the QCC classes. So overall, I think it's been received and used well. So thank you, Anita.
That's great to hear. Yeah, that is something actually I've been meaning. We haven't really talked about how we've been offering community college classes this year. We haven't had it really publicly at the school committee. So I appreciate all the work that's gone into that. It's a great opportunity for our students. And I know Kevin, I think Kevin Carney's been pretty into that. Amy.
Yes.
I did want to just ask Sharon if you could keep us apprised of kind of if you see other districts moving away from that weighted GPA, like where that's going, because I would like to see us be more progressive than what we are, or at least be aware. I had no idea till I saw that document that you sent that schools
Yeah.
were not doing a weight. Like, to me, that blows my mind. Talk about back in my day, it was all about, you know, how can I make my GPA go up? I wasn't worried about rank, but I was worried about that.
Right.
So I'm really curious to see what the impact is on students and schools that do that, and what happens with college admissions. So if you
Sure.
could keep us updated, that'd be awesome.
I'm on it, Amy.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions for Jim and Sharon while they're here? All right. Well, thank you both so much for that thoughtful presentation and for all the work you've been doing this year. I know it's been a challenge, so we appreciate you.
You're
you.
welcome. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks
guys.
for coming. All right, and next we're going to have a district update from Jay.
All right. Get this started. All right, we've kind of got a far-ranging district update tonight, so as usual, feel free to jump in at any time and ask questions or add to it. I'm going to talk about the updated guidance. I've received a lot of questions, updated guidance from the governor last week. Received a lot of questions about that daily since that update. Talk about where we stand with planning and then give some COVID updates. All right, there's more text in the next few slides than I generally like to give, but I couldn't figure out a way around it. So right now, just to put things in context, just over half of Massachusetts students are participating in some form of all remote model for education. There are many districts in the state that are going full remote. Not too many in our area, but when you think statewide, there are many. Last week, when the governor gave his update at the end of the week, in partnership with that update was a change or a resetting of the metrics. So we've all seen that map that has all of the different communities within the state, and they were either gray, they were green, yellow, or red. There were 120 communities labeled red. So this isn't a secret. Over the past few months, it went from a largely green map to largely red and yellow. They reset that. They did away with the actual use of the map and went with a chart. And now 16 instead of 120 communities are labeled as red. So it was completely reset.
Right now, the state of Massachusetts looks at 3 communities only as having transmission rates that are high enough to justify them going all remote. And that's Chelsea, Lawrence, and Revere, where the transmission rates are very high, highest in the state. Up until last week, they were saying any communities that go into the red should work with DPH and DESE and should consider moving to the all remote model. Now, with the update last week, they're now saying that those red communities, with the exception of those 3, should consider hybrid, which most of them at most were doing hybrid anyhow. So obviously you can see a theme, and it's get kids back into schools. In Massachusetts, the ultimate decision is left to individual communities. The line has never been so gray, if you will. I'm sure you've noticed that they have kind of put on blast, as the kids say, the districts. There were 16 districts about maybe a month and a half ago that were in green or yellow, but were still going full remote, and the state was all over them. Basically put out an edict saying that if you don't get going with the in-person, you're going to be audited. There are going to be other follow-up ramifications of that. So they've been putting a lot of pressure on those communities. I do think it's important to realize that when the governor is talking about getting back into school, he talks about it in a general sense, but he's in large part talking about the districts that are going all remote, that really don't have very high transmission rates. And that's where the pressure is. We are already going hybrid. We have since day one. The model that we use puts our students in classes more than the great majority of districts already. So in that update, they talked about the state basically, and this is me paraphrasing, doubled down on the plan not to close schools. And I'll talk about that more in a little bit, but their intention, even though statewide and nationally the number of cases is spiking, they right now do not have a plan to close schools. They're actually pushing in the other direction, where they want more kids in schools. And that's because, as they cite, schools are not showing high transmission rates or transmission rates at all for the most part. And again, they are focusing on the districts in full remote, making the move to in-person instruction. So in the guidance that went out, so we had that, I think it was on Friday, Thursday or Friday, they had the press conference. Right after that, DESE put out a memo that basically took what was talked about on the state level and boiled that down to focus on what were the pieces that affected education in the educational system directly. So I took the pieces towards the bottom of this slide right from that memo. The top part that's not highlighted, I've already touched upon. And then they mentioned that a hybrid model should be used only if there's no other way to meet the health and safety requirements within the district. And for us, that is for all districts, that's huge. It was just in one sentence and it really wasn't well defined. But that's all of the requirements in terms of social distancing. So that minimum of 3 feet, with the ideal being 6 feet plus, and all of the restrictions that come with the buses, all of those safety precautions in place, that's what limits, for all districts, the number of students that they can have in person. That is far and away the biggest thing. If we magically could double our space overnight, we would still not be able to accommodate on the buses, for example, because of those regulations. They also stated that parents and caregivers will continue to have the option to choose a district's remote learning program for their children. And full remote is going to be an option for this entire year. I did receive a number of emails from parents who had watched or read about or seen coverage of that press conference, and they came away thinking that all kids are going to, like, overnight be going back to school and there's no RLA in our case. And that's just not the case. And the state's been really clear that needs to be provided for the entire year at this point. The other piece that ties to this is you've probably seen some districts, we've had high schools in our area, but not whole districts that I know of, move from hybrid to full remote and then stay in full remote. Some of the bigger districts, I think Fitchburg announced today that they're full remote. They were hoping to come back this month and they've now delayed it till, I think it was late January. So the state's position is now, if in partnership with DESE and the Department of Public Health, the decision is made to close a school and go remote, or to go remote as a district for some reason, it would have to be pretty significant, that reason, that it is to be allowed, but it needs to be done in as short a time period as possible. So if you do have to go full remote, in that district or that school needs to return to in-person as quickly as possible. So that thinking that has played out in other districts where we tried it, the numbers are going up, we're going to have to go full remote for the year. That's not acceptable in the eyes of the state. And that was made clear last week. So what does this all mean for us? Right now, no change. We're already providing as much in-person instruction as possible. Our week on and week off model is providing more direct instruction to students than the great majority of other districts in the state. It's those distancing requirements that I talked about. Those, no matter what, those right now prohibit the full return. And that's in our classrooms, and that's in our buses. I didn't get to read the whole thing, but MASS, the Mass Association of School Superintendents, this evening put out a response to the governor's press conference and released last week. In the theme, I only looked at it briefly, but it was very clear that they're saying we can't bring everybody back or more kids back as long as those mandates around spacing still exist, like that 3 to 6 feet in classrooms. If you think about trying to get 6 feet between every individual in the classroom, that's exceedingly hard to do. You definitely, even in our largest classrooms, we can't get back a full classroom of students. There's no way to do that. And then on the buses, that's a certain reality as well, just as we actually have less flexibility with the buses in that we can't come up with a bus out of thin air. When with a classroom, could we expand into libraries? Could we use some spaces that weren't traditional classrooms in the past? Sure, it gives us a tiny bit of flexibility. But with buses, districts just don't have that flexibility. And that's what MASS in their response is very, very clear about. And then also, we obviously have recent trends where even in Grafton, where the transmission rate has been relatively low, we're still having a couple cases a week. And certainly statewide, those numbers are continuously going up. So I find it hard to believe that as those numbers go up, the state is going to significantly reduce those spacing restrictions or spacing mandates between all individuals in our schools. So jumping to planning, we're still working on that readiness and for the potential need to go all remote, either as a district, more likely for an individual school. If we had a significant spike at, pick your school, and we'll talk about staffing, that's a huge issue for us, a corresponding issue. But we're trying to be as ready as possible to jump to all remote if needed. I think it's one of those things that sounds easier than it actually is. We've just started on Friday, started a new schedule at GMS. I want to thank Roseanne Kraposka and Tim Fouth and the staff at GMS. They've done a fantastic job redoing their entire schedule. It's a schedule built for our COVID needs. And a ton of work has gone into that. It's very rare that you have a mid-year schedule change of this magnitude, but they thought it was what was best for students, best for staff, and best for the school. And I really am proud of them for taking that on and handling it so well. The K-1 return, we've certainly talked about that. That's something we're going to look at throughout the year. It isn't something that we looked at in October, November, and right now the numbers really don't work in terms of spacing, so we stopped looking at it. We really are prioritizing that eventual return with K-1. I don't see if when that day comes, when we're able to bring kids back, that we're not looking to prioritize K-1. It was incredibly, no surprise, incredibly well received by parents, to the degree that we would have so many kids returning that we then couldn't get to even the 3 feet between students, which puts us out of compliance and kind of stops us dead in our tracks. So right now, the K-1 return is on hold, but as I mentioned, we're definitely, I'm glad that we've been looking at it and we're going to continue to do so. A district-wide survey, we talked about this a few weeks back. I'm certainly more than happy, and it's actually, I'm always happy to put out a district-wide survey. I think the thinking was 2 meetings ago, maybe we take a look at that and kind of see how we're doing and get data. The problem with that is even if half of our parent population responds, say it's 5 open-ended questions, you're looking at 30,000 pieces of data. So when we do that, and if the committee wants me to, I'm more than happy to move forward with that, but we have to be really, I would suggest that we be incredibly thoughtful about what we're actually trying to gain from that survey and be very direct in terms of how we set up that survey. 30,000 pieces of data is great, but everybody's flat out. Our ability to really then do something meaningful with that data would be a challenge, no question. And in terms of the COVID updates, I wanted to be clear with the cases that we have. I get, and this will probably just be a reality until COVID is no more, but anytime I have to send out one of those form letters, I get many questions. Probably the number one question is around, is it just like I go over to the school and figure out who are the close contacts and I kind of just wing it? Thankfully, we have numerous people who have a medical background. We've got Jackie Davis, our nursing coordinator, all of our building nurses. They work with our staff and with the Department of Public Health. So there are a few point people from DPH that as soon as we have a suspected case, we call them and they, in partnership with us, walk us through a very well-established protocol for identifying close contacts, for communication out, for the post-event cleaning. All of that is done with DPH. So this isn't, the superintendent just winging it. It's really well thought out, a very safe, very comprehensive process. We are one of the districts. There are about 200 districts out of roughly in the state. You have about 330 districts. We're one of about 200 who signed up to participate in the Abbott Binax Now testing program. It hasn't been released. I signed up for it when it first came out, maybe a week ago. At the end of last week, I think it was Thursday, I had to participate in a webinar about the testing program. So none of this has come to fruition. We haven't had to train anybody on this yet. This is on the very early phase of rollout. And right now, I don't know what their timing is, but simply put, these are tests, rapid COVID tests that would be available through our nursing staff. So if somebody needed to be tested, they could, we can't just go around and test people. We'd have to have parental approval to test any student. Staff can obviously get tested. So there would be all kinds of parameters that would be a real procedure to this, but we would be able to test within our schools and get a rapid response on those tests to find out if somebody does indeed have COVID, if they're positive or negative. That right now would be fantastic for us just to have that availability. As you know, right now, we've got to have people going to testing centers, long lines. It's a challenge for sure. So this program, I think is going to be a great thing for us, and I will certainly keep you posted as we move forward. The school committee is very aware of the efforts we've been making in the area of capital. We're looking at a performance energy contract with Train. We have met 2 times now with Capital Improvement Planning Committee. Right now we have Train. They came out to Grafton and took a look at the heating and ventilation system in North Street Elementary School in general last week or the week before, and they're going to have a report to us on what it would take to get a new ventilation system there. So we would then have updated ventilation systems at all 6 schools. And I think they're going to be able to get back to us on that in early December. So we're certainly working on that. This is on the long list of things that we don't have a great answer for. We're doing our best with. I think it was James that brought it up maybe 2 meetings back. With the weather, right now the weather is fantastic, but once the weather gets really cold or we have rainy days, snowy days, etc., the ability to find and create spaces where we can take regular mass breaks, where we can, right now, just being able to get outside, knock on wood, we've only had a couple rainy days this fall. So that's been a great release valve for us, but eventually we're going to find ourselves without that release valve. So that's something we've focused on quite a bit. And then DESE put out guidance on snow days. I think I've shared this with the committee. It came out maybe 2 weeks ago, where this year and this year only, they are allowing districts, if they choose to, they can use, instead of having a snow day, they can make it a remote day. They are going to put out some definitions as to what actually has to happen on those days. And by that, I'm largely expecting DESE to say it needs to be largely synchronous. It needs to be activity-based, have a lot of contact between staff and students, be robust in terms of they haven't set a number of hours, but I'm going to guess 4+ hours of actual instruction. So I don't think this is going to be just call it remote and kids can do it largely asynchronous and just go on a website and do some choice boards or something. Our ability to utilize these days, if the school committee decided to move in that direction, I would think is going to be very connected to what comes out from the state in terms of expectations. And the other issue that's come up certainly has been, what do you do if you have power outages? So if we have significant snowfall and power outages, obviously that cripples us to a large degree, if not entirely, in terms of that remote feature. Or if you have staff who are in other parts of the state and they have power outages, how exactly would we deal with that? And then almost second to last, last week, Tracy submitted a statewide audit report on time on learning. As I've mentioned earlier in this update, we are doing exceptionally well in terms of time on learning overall, and definitely in comparison to area and statewide districts. So that went in, we submitted on Friday midday, and it'll be interesting. Without a doubt, we're going to receive information from DESE and from the state in terms of where districts are at, how we compare to the state as a whole, and then I would expect further definition from the state in terms of expectations. And it's my belief that we're meeting or exceeding expectations at this point. And then lastly, I saved the biggest challenge for last. Our most significant concern, of course, aside from health and safety, is staffing. A day has not gone by where Kristen Gasper and I haven't spent a great deal of time focused on this challenge. I would love to tell you that we've made great gains, and boy, you know, we've had some wonderful thoughts. That just hasn't been the case. To illustrate the issue at hand, the snapshot on that left-hand side, that's today. So today in the Grafton Public Schools, we have 50 absences of staff. 25 of those staff members are from quarantine. So while in comparison to other districts, we haven't had a lot of cases within our schools. It feels like a lot, but if you were to look at a couple a week is nothing compared to many districts. But some of those cases have resulted in significant numbers of staff having to be quarantined. So out of those 50, we have 25 today who are quarantined. And then you have 25 that have typical absences, be it bereavement, being, you know, your standard illness, cold, what have you. A few who are self-quarantining, meaning that they may have had contact outside of the schools. You know, over a weekend, they had contact with someone with COVID, or they believe they may have, and they've self-quarantined. So that 25 alone wouldn't be odd for us. That would be fairly typical. The total staff number about 550. So we typically don't have the 25 quarantine for sure, and we typically don't just have 6 substitutes. That number of 6 substitutes, that's kind of high for us recently. That's the high for the week. We've had some days this week with 3 substitutes. And 6 substitutes, believe it or not, we're very comparable to other districts. There is what I am laying out before you is playing out across the state. So that's a massive problem. The compounding issues are the length of the quarantine. So you're looking at 14 days, more or less, depending on when it falls. You're looking at 10 school days. But it's not as if somebody's out on like a Thursday and Friday and we've dealt with this in the past, maybe there's a stomach bug going around and one school just gets walloped and it's terrible. And it lasts a couple days. It's a Thursday and Friday, and we have a bunch of staff and students out, and we just somehow get through it. And then that Monday, it's like, whew, you know, we made it through it and we're back. This is a guaranteed 14 days, anytime that we have staff in quarantine. So, and we, for the most part, haven't just had one staff member be quarantined. Usually if there are close contacts that are identified, we've had groups of 3, 5, we had a group of 9 staff members in one school. So you've got a whole group of staff going out at one time, which is, again, incredibly challenging. And again, that's over 14 days, usually 10 school days. We also, and this is a big one, we have very limited emergency options. So let's go back to the example with the stomach bug that goes around. Worst comes to worst, this plays out, let's say it's at the high school. If we had 25 staff members out and we throw all our subs in the district at it and we still have 10 unfilled spots, we would have people, you know, pick up, like fill in as best they could, but we could always fall back on, if we had to, we could put students in the auditorium. We could have students use the commons, even just as a placeholder for a single class period. At the elementary level, if we had to, we could merge classrooms. We could put 2 classrooms together and our staff would somehow make it work. That's historically what we would do if in a real jam. We can't do that now. So I can't tell you the impact that has. Like those, not that we did it all the time, but if you had an emergency, you had some outs. That was like the playbook, you know, page 1 for staffing emergencies. That's taken off the table. We certainly can't put a large number of students in the high school auditorium. We've used the Commons, and we're going to have to, but the Commons can only absorb so many students. If we had to, we could use, in typical times, the bleachers in the gymnasium at the middle school and the high school. We can't do that now. So we're going to continue to focus on it. We're going to continue to talk about it. I've talked about it with numerous area superintendents. Everybody's dealing with the same problem, but that's, in actuality, that's the number one concern right now, is around staffing. And remember, this is also when it's 70 degrees and it's November. I expect, COVID aside, of course we expect more cases of the typical flu, more people with colds, more absences in the winter months. It happens every year, and it's going to happen again this year. So that's only going to add to the challenges. I'm sorry to end on such a downer of a note, but at this point, I can take any questions you may have.
Liz?
So thank you, Jay. So my question was regarding this, of course, this last slide, and I think you mentioned that one of the issues with staff is that the people who are in close contact with someone who needs to be quarantined, that those people also need to be quarantined, which of course makes sense. How is close contact amongst teachers and staff defined? And is there any way to facilitate keeping them more separate in some way? I'm sure you've.
Yeah, I don't have the actual definition in front of me, but it's 6 feet with or without a mask, within 6 feet, with or without a mask for sustained 15 minutes, but it's really cumulative 15 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes over a 24-hour period. When you add that up, when you have staff who are in the same basic proximity for the majority of a day, it doesn't take much to get to 10 to 15 minutes of contact within 6 feet. That's been our biggest area of focus. That's, in essence, right now, that's the only thing that we can really push as best we can. Tomorrow, we actually worked today with Jackie Davis, sent me a Q&A from DPH. We're putting that all together, and that's going to go to principals and then to staff tomorrow about doing our absolute best to keep that definition of close contact in mind, and if we keep that in mind throughout the day, it's not going to prevent all close contacts with staff, but we can certainly try to minimize those numbers. Aside from that being the one effort that we're making, we're fairly limited in brilliant ideas that we're coming up with. It's especially tough when I'm talking about the staff. It's a combination of paraprofessionals and teachers, and many of our teachers and paraprofessionals are in contact with students. Maybe they're 1-to-1 or 1-to-2. It's almost impossible to maintain a distance of 6 feet. It is impossible to avoid it for all but 10 to 15 minutes of a school day. So it's been a challenge, no question about it. Our service providers, say speech and language, who are going into different classrooms, working with different students, and students who are connected with different paraprofessionals. That's a huge challenge, and it's not just Grafton, it's statewide, because the nature of their positions, they're interacting with staff and students at fairly close quarters throughout the day. We have a lot of plexiglass, we have a lot of safety measures in place. Those do not factor into the identification of close contacts. It's in the eyes of the person doing the close contact identification and that tracing, the plexiglass doesn't exist. So it's a huge challenge.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Amy?
Thanks for this, Jay. Of course, my question is also about this. So, what should parents expect at this point? Are we looking at a situation where, you know, maybe beginning in December, they get a phone call at 5:30 saying there's no school for, say, Millbury Street today because we don't have enough staff? Is that something that could happen?
It certainly could happen, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we're going to do our very best to avoid that. We could probably, I mean, that's not my worst nightmare, but it's on the list. We would probably, I don't want to be held to this because you could have like 2 schools that play. There's so many variables
Right.
here, but what you would typically do in kind of that superintendent playbook is throw everything you had at that school for one day and get through that, say, Thursday with, you know, I'm teaching a class, the principal already would be teaching a class, assistant principal. We would be throwing everything in the kitchen sink from anything that's not, anybody who's not working directly with kids would probably be shifted to that building for that day to fill those needs. And then I would make the call on Friday where we know we just can't keep it up. I would make that call and cancel for Friday into the following week is probably how it would play out.
Because you don't know that early in the morning.
Yeah, that's the hard part. My guess is that that's what we would do. And it's so hard. I mean, less so at the high school, but it's still an issue. But people getting, at least with snow and ice, even if they're, you know, it's more snow and it was a little bit of a surprise, they generally know that's on the horizon, if you will. But to catch parents like so off guard at the break of dawn is, I mean, if I have to do it, I will, but it really puts everybody in a bad spot. So I would certainly do my best to avoid that. But in terms of just the general need to shift to remote based on staffing, that could definitely happen.
Okay. Thank you.
And
I hope
many of those staff, if we had to, let's pretend we don't have enough bodies to provide that in-person instruction. So far, the majority of staff who are quarantined are ready, willing, and able to teach remotely. But again, that we're not necessarily set up for that, in that they were in person. So if we were to go all remote in that building, I do believe that most of the quarantine people, assuming they're not symptomatic, would be able to also contribute to the instruction.
I have another question, if I may, about, you talked about how if we have to go full remote for whatever reason, either one building or the whole district, do you feel that the staff and the teachers are more ready now than they were a month ago? Or
Yeah.
they are more ready, but they're not quite, you know, it's not flip a switch.
Yeah, it's definitely not flip a switch. The principals, the staff are, the whole staff is fantastic. Principals, we've really pushed on that, like that readiness to do it. Again, it's just, as you said, it's just not flipping the switch and we're automatically off and running. Like figuring out, you can do a little more of that at the middle and high school level. You have greater independence. They're just set up in a way that kids could more or less just follow their schedule. It's not that easy in, say, 3rd grade. RLA is now set up for that, but a tremendous amount of work has gone into creating that. Like getting all of the different specials up and running, getting the services that are needed, be it speech and language, being it OT, all of those things. Are critical to students, and having, right now we're doing basically 4 different models, getting rid of all 4 and doing, well, not RLA, getting rid of 3 of them and transitioning to a new model is definitely challenging. But we're definitely more ready to do that now than we were a month or two ago, no question.
That's good to hear. Thank you, Jay.
Rahul?
Jay, you mentioned we were pretty much at par with other districts when we have 6 substitutes.
Yeah.
How about the teaching staff in comparison to other districts? Are we comparable or?
In terms of those who are quarantined,
No, I mean total that we have, not quarantine, but like what we have in the school ready to teach.
yeah, very comparable.
Okay.
Yep. Like other districts, we've done a lot of hiring for this year to fully staff all of our different models. We were very fortunate that Kristen was brilliant and get out ahead of it in terms of the hiring. A lot of districts are actively looking for positions that were advertised back in the late summer that they couldn't fill, and they still can't fill them. So we were just about fully staffed by the time school started, and very, very few other districts were. So.
Okay, good.
Jen?
Hi, Jay, thank you. You mentioned earlier, well, first of all, I appreciate everything that the middle school did I appreciate that they were able to make the changes and refocus for whatever was going to benefit the kids or the students and the staff. So with that, I was wondering, I know you don't want to do a mass survey for the community, but I don't know how often you survey, or at least figure out what the teachers need to be as effective as possible, because now that we're into this a whole quarter, we can kind of start seeing what we thought we were going to do back in September. I'm sure has changed 2 months later. So I don't know if there are things that the staff might need to make everything run smoother.
I'd assume that they're being asked on a regular basis, but I can easily look into that. And if need be, we can do a district survey. But that's just, for example, Tracy's on calls and meeting with people, curriculum leaders, department heads, principals, assistant principals, the RLA teachers, RLA coordinator on a daily basis. And the staff in a great way hasn't been shy about saying, this is what we need in terms of training, supports, software. We've done a ton of work through our great tech department. So I think we've been doing that and doing it fairly well since day one, but I can definitely make sure of that and do a survey if needed, sure.
And then Jay, you and I are meeting with all of our new staff starting at the end of this week. We're meeting with each of the new staff to see how they're doing and the needs that they might have as well.
Great. Another question about the Abbott Phoenix that you were talking about.
Mhm.
When we sign up, is everyone who applied automatically can be accepted into this program, or is it chosen?
I don't know. It sounds that way to me. I went through one webinar training that was really just like an overview of the program, and then they have you do a survey at the end to say, do you still want to do it? I didn't get the sense that there was like a shortage of the tests, or they only had a few spots. It sounded to me like if we've gone this far, we're in.
Okay. And then the last question I had was, with the mass breaks, with the governor's like new guidelines, how does that relate to the schools?
Yeah, it doesn't. I think that was in the DESE guidance that came out, but there was in the small print that it wouldn't affect schools. And well, especially in our case, the part that was most pronounced last week from the state was, I don't know if it was mandated or that they increased their recommendation that the youngest students wear masks, but ours already were pre-K up since day one. So that didn't have an impact on us.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Jay, I have a few questions. For that, the testing is that for free or do people still have to pay to get the rapid tests?
No, it's free.
Oh, that's helpful. And we don't have to pay to be in it.
Correct. No, we do. It was like $150.
Okay,
So I said yes.
okay.
And going back to Jen's question, they could. I just want to be really clear. Although I think I did share like the basic memo that came out about it. And they've got millions of tests, but I don't get the sense that they're going to drop off in front of the high school, enough tests for everybody in town to get one or anything.
Right. But this would be if our teachers were exposed, they don't have to pay whatever, a certain amount and go to Marlboro to get a
Yeah,
rapid test or
Yep,
whatever.
Same with students with
Yeah,
parental sign off.
right. So if it's like you might have been exposed, then we can get the test and find out. And then if the test comes back negative, I should know this, are the kids, do they still have to quarantine or can they go back?
I would think not. At most, I would think they'd maybe have to go and, I don't know, that's a good question. I don't know, I can find out.
Yeah, let's find that out because I feel like that's a gray area, especially because sometimes there's false negatives or it shows up later.
I can promise you it won't be gray. It's gray in my head, but
Okay.
there has been no gray there won't be any gray, I promise.
All right, because this is making me gray, but
Yeah, I'm long past that.
Hey, can school committee members get tested too?
If you're nice to the superintendent.
I'm very nice. I waited 5 hours today for one.
Oh, geez.
And I
oh,
get it.
Wow.
I hope you're okay, Amy.
Oh, I'm fine. Thank you.
I had a couple other questions. So for snow days, are you looking for us to make a recommendation on that?
Not yet. I think,
Okay,
you certainly can, but I would typically get the information, process it, figure out what's going to work, what's not going to work, kind of pros and cons. A lot of it's going to go back to those expectations, and
yeah,
a different scale, but the ability to just flip the switch and provide. If you told me right now, tomorrow, every single student is going to switch from full in-person to from hybrid, from wherever, all at once, to have 4 hours of direct instruction from various teachers, we couldn't do it. No way.
right.
Um,
Yeah.
To do
No,
that.
and that's a lot. I feel like that's a lot to expect from teachers too, just thinking of their home situation. It was like it in the spring, right? They'll have challenges with daycare and technology and just not being as set up.
So if the expectation is a relatively high degree of synchronous instruction, that's going to be, whatever we do, we obviously want to do it well. And
Right.
do it in an authentic way. So once that's defined, I would think, I'm not sure what the timeline is on that. I can find out. But I would make a recommendation and go to you. If it's
Okay.
largely asynchronous and it's more like what they used to be piloting.
Yeah, like the bags.
Years ago, it was like a Blizzard bag where
Yeah.
you'd have work in there, but staff wasn't expected to change it every day or make it
Right.
timely. It was more generalized. It was about, basic skills at whatever grade level. It would sit in the bag, and in theory, when you had a snow day or expected one, you bring the bag home and take out your work, and there you go. That's going to be a different conversation if that's the expectation versus what I talked about a minute ago.
Right. And I get the feeling that that's not going to be the expectation, just based on what Jesse and the governor has said at this point.
In some districts, I'm sorry to talk over you, Laura.
No.
Some districts that are all remote right now, even though the state's pushing them, obviously, to go in person. If we were all remote right now, continuing all remote on a snow day is about as easy as it comes.
Right.
So there will be, even if it's fairly, if the expectations are fairly high in terms of that synchronous instruction, some districts that are doing that now could switch. They really could do it, flip of the switch.
Yeah.
Um,
'Cause
so
they're all
I just think it's important to keep in context.
Okay. Yeah, but a couple more thoughts on that, but then I'm thinking about the survey. And I know, I mean, I do feel like people, just like teachers, they haven't been too shy about sharing their concerns. I hope they're not waiting for a survey if they have concerns. But I was wondering if there was one piece of data maybe we were looking for that we haven't been getting that we could focus on. And I don't know what that is, but just trying to think, because I definitely, and I think we all have, I mean, we can feel the frustration growing a little bit. And I think we're doing an amazing job, and I'm so appreciative of all of you and our teachers. But I do know that parents they're getting COVID fatigue, and just because we're tired of the pandemic doesn't mean that it's over. And I think the governor it heightened everybody when he came out on Friday, and people really were expecting to either have a date from us, or, we started with the K-1 conversation, and I can feel kind of the frustration mounting a little bit with people. So I don't know where I'm going with that, but I think just if there's maybe one thing we could think about that we might have not gotten feedback on, or Amy, are you saving me? Did you have a thought to add to that? Or
Well, I do have a thought, because I'm pretty sure I was the one that brought up a survey in the first place. And I think that my intent was to make sure parents felt heard.
yeah,
There's been a lot of online discussion. There are some parents that are frustrated. They don't feel that their concerns are being heard, et cetera, et cetera. However, we're now through the first quarter with the middle school and high school, and we're nearing the end of the first marking period, and we're very close to parent-teacher conferences, which are taking place. They are happening. I guess my thought, if I could switch it up a little bit, was, and I know that Jay has been obscenely busy, but maybe what we need is a superintendent newsletter going out to parents with an update. This is where we're at. Clarify the K-1, clarify what we talked about tonight with the governor's new rules, not really impacting the district, and DESE's standards changing. Just a letter to parents. This is what we're doing. This is what we're working on, because they don't all watch these meetings as hard as we all work to share the meetings online. And we do try, not everybody has time. And I see all the folks on tonight. Hi, thank you for joining us. But I think the reality is that a lot of the parents haven't heard from the top guy in a while. And that's not a criticism at all. I think it's just, they need a little love, a little info. And maybe that's the solution to the problem that I was trying to solve, rather than a survey.
I can try that. I don't know when, but certainly by next week, I can definitely put something out. And then if we find out that written love does the trick, fantastic. And if not, at the next meeting, we can talk about a survey.
Well, and you always say in your newsletter, feel free to reach out to me, and you're always great about that. And I think that that's where you'll get some of that non-necessarily non-school specific feedback.
Oh, I've been getting feedback.
yeah.
Well,
I mean, and I hate to think that people don't feel heard. I feel as far as committees go, we do a real, just to pat ourselves on the back, in Grafton and all over the state. I've talked to a lot of school committees, and we're really giving opportunities for people to be heard. I think people want to vent, and I don't necessarily always think people want a solution. I think sometimes they just need to vent and be validated that their feelings are okay. So I hate that people think that they aren't heard, and I think we're all very accessible. I'll say it again, all of our emails are on our page. We all are open and accessible, so reach out and we'll do our best, but we can't wave a magic wand and get all the kids back to school. So that is the answer right now, and it's a hard answer. So, and I hear rumors that we all want kids to stay remote or something. Like, no. I mean, if you hear a rumor, if something sounds crazy, it probably is, and reach out to us and we'll clarify. I think all of us want kids to be back in school full-time in buildings safely. So I just want to put to rest any rumors on that. And if I'm speaking for somebody and you do want to stay remote, feel free to speak up. Do we have any more questions for Jay on this? This was a good presentation. Amy?
I just wanted to quickly clarify, the last day of school did change, did it not? It is the 18th.
Yeah, very good question. Yes, technically, yes. The asterisk next to that is, this was, gosh, it was back a while ago. I'm glad you brought it up, Amy. I'd forgotten about it. The commissioner said they were going to put out a waiver application, which they had never, I don't believe they've ever done before. And it was for large scale power outages on that day. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do.
I vaguely
Talked about
recall that,
that.
but I never saw anything after that.
No, and nothing has, unless I missed it, and I don't think I did. I don't think, I mean, they've had their hands full too, but yeah, I'll follow up on that. I'll simply email Desi and see if that is coming. But we obviously had a large scale power outage for that day, so we would put in for it. I can't guarantee that we would get it. So
Yeah, and I wondered if it would be retroactive to that day or not.
it is. It was all about that day.
Okay.
Yep. I'll ask tomorrow.
Any other questions or comments? Rahul?
One quick one, Jay. Have we had any switches between RLA and in-class or in-class to RLA?
Yeah, we have. I don't know off the top of my head how many. Maybe in total, I'm going to guess district-wide, maybe, I don't know, 12. But
Okay.
no real rhyme or reason, just every which way. People have been great about it. It hasn't taken us a long time.
Perfect.
Our fear over the summer, as you might recall, was, we'd have 50 people all at once wanting to move one to one model from another. It just hasn't panned out that way. And people have been great.
Thanks.
Anybody else? All right, terrific. Thank you so much, Jay. And you know what I'll also do is I can cut down the recording of just your presentation and we can post that to Amy so people can maybe just watch that instead of having to watch the meeting. I can do that tomorrow. All right, and next we're going to move on to budget. Oh no, superintendent goals. Oh, wow.
Oh, gosh, what an exciting transition.
I'm sorry, we're going to move on to superintendent goals. Yay!
I meant the topic isn't just the most exciting thing. So as you'll recall, I gave everybody my draft goals 2 meetings ago, reviewed those draft goals, didn't receive any feedback. The feedback was generally positive. I did not make any changes. I'm now bringing those goals back to the committee. Well, it was in draft form, now it's in the finalized form. Just to remind you, three goals. One focused on instructional practices with all of our different models and everything going on this year. Number 2, tied, of course, directly to that, all of our operational systems, procedures, plans, routines, to address the safety, health, and social emotional needs of students. And the third goal being to implement a cohesive approach to recruitment, hiring, induction, and support of staff. Tied to this, Kristen mentioned that we are diving into meetings with every single new employee in the district over the coming probably 3 weeks. That's just one piece of this goal. So those are the 3 goals. You have the actual formal document in the drive folder, and if the committee is open to it, I would ask that they consider approving my goals for the 2020-2021 school year.
Any questions or concerns? I can take a motion then.
Make a motion to accept James Cummings' goals for 2020, 2021 as presented.
Second.
Motion been and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, this will be a roll call vote. Jennifer Conley,
Jennifer Connolly, aye.
Amy Mark,
Amy Mar, aye.
Rahul Rati,
Aye.
Liz Spinney,
Aye.
Laura Often, aye. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Jay.
Thank you.
All right, now we're moving on to fiscal year 2022 budget planning.
So this was really put on,
Yeah.
right, Laura, it was put on to be a follow-up to the TRICOM committee meeting that took place last week. Out of that meeting, I will speak to what Anita and I have talked about, and we don't need a vote on it, but wanted your feedback on it in terms of how we as a school district move forward. Our best thinking is that we create basically two budgets. What we create, but at different times. Right now, we focus on creating essentially a COVID-free budget for the next year. So using our typical budget, the book, recreating that for the upcoming year, using actuals, et cetera, not going through the same exact process that typically takes months, really build in any kind of contractual increases, largely look to level fund or add if needed, but keep a fairly simplistic budget together to serve as just our foundation. We're going to need to put that forth on around December 1st. It's technically due December 1st. There is 0% chance that we could come up with a budget that includes COVID-related costs by December 1st. There are just way too many unknowns. And fundamentally, we're almost wholly dependent in creating a COVID budget that doesn't have substantial state and federal funding behind it. There is no way on the back of the Grafton budget, the Grafton town budget, that we could maintain COVID levels of staffing, PPE, et cetera. It's just not possible. It's not possible for any district to pull that off. So to kind of jump into the flow of the creation of the 22 budget on the town level, we need a budget to be kind of in that discussion. Right now, all we have is what essentially would be that COVID-free budget that Anita and I, with members of the leadership team, could put together fairly easily. It's hours of work, but days of work, but we could do it by the beginning of December and have a draft available. And then I would say we stick with that until we learn more about what happens with the CARES Act, what happens with any kind of funding after December 30th. And I mean, we don't even have a finalized state budget for 21. So we're just playing with such incomplete data. I don't know what we could do aside from creating that theoretical COVID-free budget for now. And Anita, I don't know if you wanted to add anything. I'm sure I left stuff out.
No, it was perfect.
Oh, okay.
Just, sorry, quick housekeeping. I see someone has his or her, their hand up. If you could put your question into the Q&A, then we can address it that way, please. Thank you. So, I mean, we haven't even, this year's been so strange. I was thinking today we normally would have the budget and we've been doing weeks and weeks of the budget. And we haven't really even seen. So if it's due to the town in early December, so in the next meeting, would we be able to at least take a look at it?
Yeah, and theoretically, yes.
I mean, I would expect that it wouldn't change too much from our one that we worked so hard on last year that just got.
We will aim for that. When I should have mentioned that I met with the temporary town administrator, Carter, a couple weeks ago, and I shared with him over the past decade we've used in terms of a timeline where we would do months of work, put a draft together mid-December, spend a full meeting focused on that. Everybody can we can take feedback, questions, all that stuff. And then over that holiday break, work on it, update, do whatever we need to do. And then we would have a more finalized version in January. So when I talked about that with him, he wasn't like, he seemed fine with it. He didn't commit to it, but he said that sounds totally reasonable too. I would think we could aim to do it for the next meeting. Worst case scenario, because we do have to do year-end report. Anita's got more than, we've just got a lot on our
I know.
plate right now. I'm not saying it can't be done, but worst case scenario, beginning of December, it waits till the beginning of December.
Yeah, okay. I mean, and you would never do this. I just want to make sure we see it before it goes to,
Oh, yeah. Oh, 100% as a draft before we submit anything. But I think I've got enough leeway. If that was mid-December that we give our draft, I do not think for 1 second Carter or anybody on the municipal side would have an issue with that.
okay, thanks. Any other questions or comments or? I know for Liz and Rahul, this is a very strange budget season for us. So it's not usually this way.
You said that last year, though.
I know last year was also a strange year. So you just never know what you're going to get. That's why it's so exciting.
Yes.
Liz.
So Jay, you mentioned the funding that runs out December 31st. I mean, is there any sense, any whispers, any indication, or we just nobody knows? No.
As far as I know, nobody knows.
Yeah.
It would be catastrophic is a great word for it. If they don't figure something out or come up with additional fund, if something doesn't happen, basically everybody that hired, and that's everybody, hired for COVID staffing, those monies, if they disappear in the end of December, unless people are working for free, you've got a fundamental catastrophic problem. So I don't for a second think it's not going to be addressed. I mean, it would be catastrophic for us. That would be, multiply that by 10 for many of our cities. It just, you couldn't function. And talk about something that's not in concert with the statewide effort to try to push for more students to return to school. It's just completely at odds. So I will update you guys. That's definitely the biggest kind of talking point out there, that people are confident because of everything I said that is going to come, but there hasn't been a sense of timing, amounts, etc.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Jen. Oh, Jen, sorry.
I'm just going off what Liz just said. How much would it, do we have like a ballpark number, how much it would affect us? Like if we couldn't pay the staff, staffing is.
The numbers, it's going to be, it would be huge. Do you have a guess, Anita? Like if that just dried up, I would think we'd have to scramble for what, 800,000?
I would say north of $500,000 all the way up to maybe like 1.1, 1.2.
So do we have enough COVID money to pay that? Because so
No, nobody does. That's the problem. It's not like PPE where you can, I mean, this is an overly simplistic answer, but PPE, the money comes in, you purchase the PPE, you can put it in a storeroom and disperse as needed. With the staffing, that money, the way it's scheduled now stops at the end of December. And therefore, unless people were going to work for free, payment would stop. Nobody could afford, I mean, our emergency, we would go to revolvers, we would go to circuit breaker, we would most likely go to the town and look to get that 200,000 that we've got in that stabilization account. Like it would be horrible, but we could probably survive countless districts, the great majority of districts could not function. And I don't believe the state for 1 second is going to allow that to happen.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. All right. Thank you both. Thanks, Anita. Thanks, Jay. And thanks to everybody for participating in our TRICOM meeting last week. It was good to get it started. For sure. All right. So next up, future agenda schedule planning. I do believe we will have CPAC on the next agenda. They wanted to wait till after their first meeting, which is this Thursday, I believe, giving them a plug. And then we'll obviously talk more about the budget probably next time.
Do you want, I'm sorry, I keep talking over you, Laura. At some point, be it, I don't know his schedule or the desire of the committee, but earlier in the meeting, it came up to that maybe getting more information about the QCC courses and the innovation pathways.
Oh, yeah, that was something I was just thinking about, because I think it's great. And
Oh, yeah.
it'd be nice to just hear some good news, but I mean, if people don't think that that's a good use of time, I'd love to hear how it's going, how many people registered, how they've been making it through. So yeah, I would like that, but.
Do either of our student reps know anybody who's doing it?
I'm not personally taking any of those classes, but I do have a lot of friends who are.
I also know a few people who are taking enrolled in those classes.
Yeah, I'm super curious to hear how that's going, and I don't know the best way to get information, but I'd love to hear from students, teachers that are, I guess there are teachers that are kind of supervising. Is that my understanding?
Right.
Like on the sidelines watching.
So I'll talk to Kevin Carney, who's been taking the lead on it, and at least have that initial discussion, and then we'll see how, if you're open to it, we'll see how the schedule,
Yeah.
where the agenda is stacking up. We might have the budget piece. Let's see where we're at. But
Yeah.
When the opportunity presents itself, we can have them ready to go.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and I think we also talked 2 weeks or 2 meetings ago, Jay, about starting to get the principals here, and you had put together.
Yeah, that's built into the calendar. It should be on the one that I sent.
Yeah. Okay. Is that starting next?
Next time. I think it was December. I'm making this up. December 8th, beginning of December.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, the next meeting's I think the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. So I'm not sure
Right. Okay.
how long we want to go. I'm sure everyone will be busy baking and hunting.
Yes. Good night for hunting.
I think it is. Okay. Well, if you think of anything else, you guys are welcome to email me, of course. And we have some minutes to approve. Oh, Amy, we have a question, I think.
It's a statement, somebody
Okay.
saying that their son is taking 2 QCC classes and loves them. They're a great addition.
Oh, that's so nice.
That's
All
nice
right.
to hear. Thank you very much, Chris.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Amy. Minutes?
I just was wondering, I don't know if, where is it? Well, we were talking about the motion that was defeated. I don't know, is that how you write it? Is it the motion defeated 2-3, or is it usually 3-2? If you're looking at the minutes.
Oh, I think it would be, well, motion defeated 2-3. Yeah, 2 in favor, 3 against.
Okay, I wasn't
Yep.
sure. In my head, it should have been 3-2, but I
No,
didn't, I
I think
wasn't sure.
that's correct.
The only thing it wasn't, the meeting adjourned was at 7:10.
What was? I'm sorry.
It said the meeting adjourned at 7:10.
Oh, no, it was a quick meeting, but I think it was 8:10. All right, we can easily fix that. Thank you.
Okay, that's the only thing that I saw.
It was a very quick meeting. I don't know why. Maybe. Just kidding. Sorry. It's getting late. All right. Any other, can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I make a motion to approve the minutes of October 27, 2020 as written.
And amended.
Oh, and with the amendments.
Second.
All right, motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote. Jen Conley,
Jen Connolly, aye.
Amy Marr,
Amy Mar, aye.
Liz Spinney,
Aye.
Rahul Rati,
Rahul Rati, aye.
Laura Often, aye. All right, motion carries 5-0, and we'll just let Debbie know about those few changes. Thank you, Jen. For one, I think it was only one. All right, and we have a warrant.
I move the committee approve warrant number 20 dated November 12th, 2020 in the amount of $355,726.67.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Jen?
Just had a discussion. I just had a couple of questions on the warrant. I didn't get to read it until later on. Was there was one amount, Anita, it was for $5,000 for a psychologist. Is that like a one-time amount, or is that a stipend, or is it different than the school psychologist? I'm just not sure where, I don't remember seeing that before.
I'm gonna have to look into that. I'm sorry, but
I can't find it right now, but I know I saw it somewhere, but it stood out to me and I just didn't know if there was like some background with it.
let me look and then I will email you.
Okay. And then my other question was all the ones that's the COVID related that has, I think that's COVID related. I know that you said that we're getting a lot of the towns, like PPE, and then they'll reimburse us. Is that right?
Yep. So what we're doing is we're charging it to a school account. And then when I'm ready to do the reporting, then we end up doing a journal entry from the school's account into
Here, all of that.
Excuse me?
So it will show up on here when that comes back.
It will.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Any other discussion? All right, hearing none, this will be a roll call vote. Jennifer Conley,
Jennifer Connolly, aye.
Amy Marr,
Amy Mar, aye.
Liz Spinney,
Aye.
Rahul Rati,
Rahul Rati, aye.
Laura Often, aye. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Anita. All right, and now we're going to go for our fee discussion,
Do you want me to set it up, Laura?
unless you want me to.
You pick. You pick. Doesn't matter to me.
Go ahead.
All right. So in the summer, the school committee suspended parking, bus, and the new athletic fees. The committee said they wanted to revisit in December. In terms of my recommendation, I don't foresee any significant changes anticipated in terms of the models we're utilizing or the way in which we're doing business right now. We still want to promote bus use and athletics. They are running. Our athletic department, coaches, kids have been fantastic, but they're a fraction of their typical level. And so with all of that not changing, my recommendation would be to continue the suspension of the said fees for the remainder of the year. If we don't want to change course, I would recommend that we continue to use monies in the transportation, in the parking revolving accounts, as we have to this point this year. We were very healthy with those two, thankfully, with those two accounts. We would still expect to end the year with a surplus of 58,000 in those two combined revolving accounts. So I think we'd still be in very good shape for the remainder of the year.
Any questions? Rahul?
Jay, I think I agree with you. But at the same time, paying the vendors, for example, the bus, are we allowed to use the COVID money because the situation is because of COVID?
No, we can't. But we have, Anita's done a brilliant job working with other area finance directors, and we've taken that into account, but we're paying less. We obviously had a contract, so everything needs to be negotiated, but we didn't provide or we didn't need busing for those first 10 days of the school year, for example. And some of the changes as a result of COVID have resulted, thanks to the work of Anita, in decreased payments to transportation. And that offset has certainly helped us make it through without the fees in place this year.
Thanks.
Anybody else? I'll just say, I agree. I'm in favor of, keeping no fees for the rest of the year. I think parents could maybe use a win here. So as long as it's not going to affect, I know we just talked about how we're worried about the money running out. This wouldn't offset any of that concerns, correct?
Correct.
Any other questions?
I'm inclined to agree, Laura. I wish things were different. I wish we were in a position where we were ready for non-COVID times, but we're just not. And, hopefully, fees we'll be talking about fees in July for September and everything will be wonderful. But I think when we made this decision in August, we all thought, oh, things are going to turn around and it's going to be great. We're going to have kids back in school, and no, we're just not there yet. So yeah, I'm inclined to agree.
Liz?
Yeah, I think one of my concerns earlier, I know there was a interest in encouraging more kids to ride the bus because we were worried about the pickup and the traffic situation there, which has been amazing, by the way, for all those people who are coordinating that. It's been so easy for us, for people picking up and dropping off kids anyway. But I was concerned about sending too many kids to the bus and have it, we had a limited number of seats, and it seems like that's not really an issue. It seems like we have plenty of room on those buses, so that really alleviates that concern for me. And I'm concerned about that money, but I hear you when you're saying that it's okay, that we can afford this, or not, who can afford any of this, but that we can make do with it, and that we don't need to use that money for other things, or we can manage this with the money that's in there. So, and charging fees at this point in the middle of the year just doesn't seem to make sense to me. But I will definitely, probably have a different position next year, but for now, I think I'm inclined to be in favor of it.
One other point that I think Jay made in a memo, or it might have been the initial memo, had to do with staff time in assessing and collecting the fees. And we're just not going to get the benefit, the bang for the buck, as it were, if we have to divert staff from other tasks to focus on chasing down, students to collect parking pass fees and bus fees. And it's just, there's so much more involved to setting this process in motion right now than there would be if the kids were all in school. And I reiterate that I hope things are back to normal and we're going to charge all those fees in August. But I don't want to see Anita and her team having to deal with setting this up right now and trying to get kids paying fees and stuff, especially right before the holidays too. That's kind of really bad timing that I didn't consider when we initially said we'd reevaluate mid-year. So.
Great. Okay. Any other thoughts? Do we need to take another vote? Because I think we only took the vote through the end of the year. So I think we actually do need to take a vote to suspend fees through the end of the 2021 school year, or yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. I'll take a motion unless somebody has more to say.
I make a motion to suspend transportation, parking, athletic fees for the rest of the 2021 school year.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, this will be a roll call vote. Jennifer Conley,
Jennifer Connolly, aye.
Amy Marr,
Amy Marr, aye.
Liz Spinney,
Aye.
Rohorty,
Alrighty, aye.
Laura Often, aye. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, everybody. All right, and now we have capital planning.
All right. So with the capital planning, I basically touched on everything I wanted to touch on. I can certainly answer questions, but over the course of the meeting, we talked about the fact that school committee has now met with CIPC twice. CIPC has been great. We talked about the potential for that performance energy contract with Train, that we weren't particularly comfortable having 5 out of the 6 schools with updated ventilation. So they came out, as a result, Train came out and did their assessment a week or 2 ago at North Street, and we should get all their numbers and all their information back in early December. In the meantime, Amy actually, as a representative on CIPC, reached out last night. We're behind in terms of, we were hoping to package all of our capital requests with the Train info, but the timing obviously isn't going to work out. So CIPC has been absolutely fantastic. And thank you, Amy, again, where today we put together kind of the non-Train projects and put that forth to CIPC. So that was just a great relief to us to have that option. And so that's basically where we stand right now.
Jay, can you share with us what you sent to CIPC, please, as well?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm assuming it's not a surprise that because we've pretty much
No, no.
had our capital.
It's all it is I will definitely share it. It is simply that listing of the summary that's in the back of the capital plan from last
Okay.
year, minus the projects that we've already completed this past summer. So
Okay.
there's 0 that is new.
I
But
thought so, but
I will still share it.
that would be great. Thank you. And Amy, do you have anything to add now that the process is going to be a little different and town meeting passed? I mean, part of the override was money for capital projects as well, which I think in a lot of the flurry, because of the school funded override, I almost forgot about that. Good news. So
Yeah, so we were committed to follow the process regardless of whether or not the bylaw was changed, but I'm glad to report for those who weren't in attendance that we did vote to change it at town meeting. And it basically just codifies what we were planning to do anyway. So at this point, the committee has received all the requests from all the departments, with the exception of the school department, but they will have them tomorrow. Because Jay, one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take that spreadsheet you sent me and I'm going to put the page numbers so that the committee can quickly go through, just because there were new forms this year and we excused the school department from filling those out just because it was a lot.
Well, if you need me to do the pages.
But next year, Jay, next year,
It's all on Anita. She's
next year, Anita.
Oh, sorry, Amy.
No, it's totally fine. I totally get it. And I had actually discussed with the rest of the committee early on that I was concerned about taxing the school department because of a new form. Like, it just seemed like a lot, especially because the format that the school department has used for years is way better than what CIPC was getting from a lot of the other departments anyway. So they like the format. It's going to be good enough to work with for now. There's even pictures. The committee is very happy.
Great.
But
Thanks
I
for the
will make that one change.
good.
So what we'll do next, just so the rest of the school committee is aware, is we'll have all of the requests from all the departments. We're starting to call in departments to ask questions and discuss. So I think this week, tomorrow we have, I want to say, police and DPW. So once the committee has a chance to look at the school requests, we'll ask Jay or Anita or somebody to come in and just answer some questions.
Yep.
And that's going to be in the next couple of weeks. So I'll send you meeting dates and try to get your availability, which I know is 0, but
No,
that's okay.
we
Figure it out.
are pro CIPC.
I'm trying to think if I'm forgetting something else, but anyway, we're gonna rank everything. And it's not based on how much money we have. It's just based on different qualifications. Like, is this legally required? Is this like some of the ADA compliance stuff is going to be in the legally required. So those will be worth more points. It's a point system. CIPC has done this in the past. They'd stopped doing it. Now we're doing it again. So if you're interested in learning more about that process, you can watch our last meeting, which was yesterday. And you can actually see the spreadsheet that we're using. It's pretty cool. But I'm a nerd. So you'll see the next time you see the spreadsheet, you'll see all the school requests in there. And from that, we will get both a plan for 2022, but also we'll have a really good idea of what's going to go into that 5-year plan for the entire town. So that'll be great.
Anita?
The list of projects, we actually did add one new project and we put it number 1. It's to buy a new lawn tractor. That's for 18,000. Just to replace a one we have right now.
Could I burden you with filling out the form for that one project?
Sure.
Just because I hadn't caught that yet because I hadn't made the list.
That's okay.
Numbers, but thank you for pointing that out. Yeah, I'll get that form over to you tonight if I can.
That's fine.
I did have one question. Somebody on the committee had asked if we have a contract with Train right now. Do we have any sort of contract with them at this point?
Basically, we have to do at least one thing. I forget what the time frame is, but one thing that could be the building envelope. It could be like the smallest of the projects in there. As long as we do one project within, I forget if it was a year or 2 years, then we don't have to, we basically get reimbursed the cost of the evaluation.
Okay. So we have to reimburse them. The cost of the evaluation.
Basically, the evaluation is free as long as you do one project.
Right. Okay.
We could do, let's pretend we just decide to not go with Train at all. What districts do is they do like the lighting retrofit, where you're going to then have the free full evaluation, and that essentially pays for itself.
And then none of the pieces of the Train project that we've seen are in the capital request, correct? Anita's talking. Hold on. What?
Sorry.
That's
So
okay.
there were 4 items on there that were on there,
Okay.
but I removed them today.
Okay. All right. So what I have is no Train stuff. All right. Okay. All right. Well, this will be fun.
Okay. Well, thank you. And Amy, I think it's passionate, not nerd. You're passionate about capital.
I love the spreadsheet.
That's awesome. And this, I think, segues well into member reports. Amy, you want to go?
Well, the CIPC met on Monday. No, I'm kidding. I do have a report from the MASC delegate conference, I guess. So I was very pleased to represent you guys on Saturday, right after town meeting. I raced home and I got on the call, and it was 5 hours long, and you're all very welcome. We elected Andrea Wadsworth of Lee as the new, I can't remember the word now. Not president-elect. Thanks, Greg. This is my life. 69 to 51. It was actually pretty close.
Oh,
so
she's phenomenal, by the way.
She was pretty impressive. I cast my vote for her on your behalf.
Good, I would have. She's amazing.
All of the resolutions that we discussed and voted on passed, with one exception. Number 10, which was the one about attendance during the pandemic. There was a lot of discussion and debate on that one. Different districts are just in different situations. We've got really good attendance here in Grafton, and it's just not a big deal, but a lot of other districts are struggling. And so there was a lot of discussion and dissension. One of the districts requested, they moved to table the motion indefinitely, and that's what ended up happening. So that one did not pass or fail. And as far as I'm aware, it's just dead because I don't think we're going to have another delegate assembly this year. So if that comes back, it won't be until next November. And by that point, hopefully it's moot. But so that's what happened. Everything else passed. We used a consent agenda. So I got to use a consent agenda twice in the same day. And we actually got 4 of the 10 resolutions passed in the consent agenda before we had to address all the ones that got pulled out. And that's why it took 5 hours. So it might have taken 7 hours if we hadn't done that. The one that we passed on, number 4, about the voting age, that was a lot of discussion. I think that went on for about 45 minutes. And it was both sides. There was definitely a lot of great discussion, a lot of great points. There was a gentleman who is 19 years old and is on his school committee. And so he spoke very passionately about getting students involved, and, you know, students are the product, but they're also the customer. And he was very, very well spoken. And I really liked what he had to say. But in the end, it did pass. It was a little closer than some of the other resolutions. So MASC will be advocating for all of those things, again, except the attendance during pandemic time. So thank you for the opportunity, guys. It was really interesting, and it was neat to hear what different districts are dealing with. And we are so lucky here in Grafton that the issues that we face are serious, and they are concerning, and they are keeping us up at night. But we are very well positioned compared to a lot of districts. It was very eye-opening for me. So.
Well, thank you, Amy. I had no idea it was going to last 5 hours. I don't think it usually lasts that long at the Cape, but I guess when you don't have the promise of food and a band afterwards, people just like to talk.
We did say that they should have delivered wine to all of our houses because it would have been full. But
had I known, I might have made a drive-by for you. So, but thank you. I'm glad we had representation.
Yes, thank
Any
you.
other member reports? Liz, Jen, you both lit up.
No, I don't have anything. We haven't met since our last meeting.
Okay.
On the TA screening committee, so nothing to report.
All right. I have a quick report. I got elected last week to District 4 of MASC, which is one of the larger districts in Massachusetts, as their new clerk. So I will be representing Grafton on that, and that's open to all of us. I'll share out when we're meeting next. Just like Amy, it was really great to get on a call and talk about some things with some area school committee members. I'm serving on the leadership team with 2 people from Marlboro. And it's really great to have the opportunity to just share, and especially this year, and just learn what other people are facing and how they're dealing with things. So I was honored to be nominated and voted in on that. And I'm excited for that. And also, Liz, you would know, I'm not actually sure when the day is, but I participated virtually in North Grafton Elementary School's Community Reading Day.
Yep. This week, I think it's Thursday.
Is it Thursday? Yep. So I guess I will be participating, but I had to submit my virtual book, and I wanted to thank Bob DeToma for his help with that, for filming me. And I think they did it. The PTG is doing a great job to still deliver the special day to the kids, even though it just won't look the same. But it was really fun. And once the date has passed, I'll post my reading on my Facebook page. If people want to hear it. I did The Pigeon Finds a Hot Dog.
Thank you for doing that, Laura.
Yeah, it's my favorite. It's my pleasure. So.
I was just going to ask if I can hear from James or Annabelle regarding what's going on in the high school with the mascot, and also maybe I know things are coming up, Spirit Week, and usually the community gets involved. So if there's things that you'd like to share.
Sure. Like I said earlier before the meeting, I haven't really heard any negative feedback from the students regarding the mascot. It's either been neutral or positive towards that. In terms of Spirit Week coming up, that's going to be the first week of December, I believe. We're going to be doing it over 2 weeks, so each cohort has a chance to come in school and dress up for each day. So we just planned that with student council. We put a bunch of posters around the school, so that'll be fun.
I also heard positive feedback about the mascot. I thought it was really helpful that there was a survey sent out to the students so that we could participate in deciding on that. So
Very exciting, a new chapter in Grafton. I think be proud, and people will be fearful to come and play against the Grafton Gators. So good job to everybody who's involved in that. And I'll be looking forward to seeing the designs to come from that. Anything else from member reports?
I had a question for James and Annabelle. So we can't go into the schools this year and see the homecoming displays. Those displays are still happening as far as I'm aware, right?
Yes, it's gonna be different this year. Like usually we have the window decorations, the 4 windows in the commons. This year it's going to be hallways instead. So I don't know what exactly that's going to look like, but in the coming weeks they'll be decorated, and you'll definitely be able to see them on Twitter. So
That
look
was
forward
going
to
to be
that.
a question. We need you to be our eyes because we can't go look, and that's one of my
Of
favorite
course, yeah.
we do. So excellent. Thank you.
Great. Anything else? Okay. I don't have any correspondence. We don't need to go into executive session, so I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. Jen Conley,
Jennifer Connolly, aye.
Amy Mark,
Amy Mar, aye.
Liz Spinney,
Aye.
Rahul Rati,
Laura TI.
Laura Often, aye. All right. Good night, everybody. Thank you.